Here are 10 questions I found on a blog that atheists supposedly can't answer. Why are some things always bad? Why is there a category of badness, evil, or wickedness? When I say that something is morally bad, what I mean is that it bothers my conscience. With respect to things that are always bad, they are things that always bother my conscience. I suspect the theist view is that some things are always bad because there is a God who always says they are always bad. My conscience does not need a God to exist to ensure that there are some acts that are always morally repugnant to me. Where do the laws of logic come from? They come from Aristotle and George Boole and other logicians. They describe the distinctions between the claims and inferences that seem to make sense to us and claims and inferences that do not seem to make sense to us. They are ultimately descriptions of how our minds work. The laws of logic are often expressed in such a way as to make them sound like they are describing reality more broadly, but we don't really know that to be the case. When we say something like, a thing cannot both exist and not exist at the same time and in the same respect, it sounds like we are describing some fundamental aspect of reality, but really laws of logic like that only say that we can't make any sense of something both existing and not existing at the same time and in the same respect. Both existing and not existing at the same time and in the same way is simply not something that has any discernible meaning. There need not be a God causing this law to be true. Theists bring up the laws of logic as though, without a God, contradictions could be true and tautologies could be false. What would that even mean? How can we call people, nature, music, or virtues beautiful without a great beauty? Why beauty if no beauty? That's like asking, how can we call anything annoying without a great annoyer? Or how can we call anything embarrassing without a great embarrasser? When we assess some variable attribute, we don't do so by comparing it to some ultimate extreme example of that attribute. We assess it in comparison to a mean. For example, when we say that something is big, we're not comparing it to some ultimate bigness, but rather to what we perceive to be an average size for the thing we are calling big. The same goes for beauty. Where did the first material come from? Energy. And energy has never not existed. It doesn't need to come from anywhere because there was never a time when it wasn't already here. Why do all or nearly all men believe in God, gods, or the God? Agency was a common inference for people to make before physics and other sciences uncovered how things worked. Aristotle didn't understand gravity, so he thought the reason why heavy objects fall toward the earth is because they seek their natural places. Animist religions explain a lot of natural phenomena by attributing the behavior of inanimate objects to a spirit or agent that is causing the phenomena through its will. That could be the inception of the concept of God or gods. The reason so many people still believe in these things, I suspect, is because they've been culturally institutionalized and people go along with it without thinking about it that much because they were brought up living that way. Why are atheist social experiments always violent, authoritarian, and cruel like Russia's or China's communism? They're not. There are lots of small-scale communes that are atheist without being violent or authoritarian. However, I'm not aware of a single theocratic democracy. I don't know what a theocratic democracy would even look like. If atheism is true, then why can't it produce as many good actions as Christianity? That's quite a non sequitur. It's debatable as to whether it's true that Christianity produces more good actions than atheism, but even if it did, what would that have to do with its truth? I see no reason why a false belief can't improve a person's behavior. This question is like asking, if Santa isn't real, how come not threatening kids with coal in their stockings doesn't get them to behave themselves? How can there be truth without God? What does meaning mean without a personal, absolute, logical word? What does meaning mean in a universe that has a God? And what do you mean by truth? My conception of truth is that it is when a belief or a claim consistently, falsifiably, and most parsimoniously matches observation. Why does a God need to exist in order for that to happen? Where are the inspiring historical examples of atheists who sacrificed themselves to serve an honorable cause? What is the point of this question exactly? Is the truth of a worldview decided by how many people who believe in that worldview sacrifice themselves for it? Nobody has sacrificed themselves in the name of Pythagorean theorem, so I guess it must not be true. Why are the great works of beauty in sculpture, orchestra, architecture, and literature all created by theists and mostly from a culture steeped in the Trinity? I get the suspicion that whoever wrote this question simply defines great works of beauty as being exclusively created by theists, making the claim that all of them are created by theists meaninglessly tautological. I suspect that any works you presented that were created by atheists would be rejected as great works of beauty simply because they were created by atheists. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.